Shalom Aleichem, my name is Rabbi Joey, and you have reached the Yoke of Messiah YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us for this Midrash of Parsha Mishpatim, which is starts in Exodus chapter 21. We'll be going through hopefully all of it tonight. If not, as much as we can get in there. It's a super interesting Parsha. Thank you guys so much for joining us. But we're going to start, as always, with the blessing over the Torah. If you know it, please go ahead and join in with us. Here we go. Barku Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Habarak Le'elam Vaed.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bar karbanu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Bless the Lord who is to be blessed.
Bless the Lord who is to be blessed forever and ever.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us this Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
Amen.
Amen. And again, it's Parsha Mishpatim, which means judgments or sentences in English. And we're going to be starting in Exodus chapter 21, verse 1. Would anybody like to kick us off?
Do it.
All right, let's do it. Mr. Noah, let's go.
And these are the ordinances that you shall set before them. Should you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall work for 6 years, and in the 7th year he shall go out to freedom without charge. If he comes in alone, he shall go out alone. If he is a married man, his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free. His master shall bring him to the judges, and he shall bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Now, if a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not go free as the slaves go free. If she is displeasing to her master, who did not designate her for himself, then he shall enable her to be redeemed. He shall not rule over her to sell her to another person when he betrays her. And if he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her according to the law of the daughters of Israel. If he takes another wife for himself, he shall not diminish her sustenance, her clothing, or her marital relations. And if he does not do these 3 things for her, she shall go free without charge, without payment of money. One who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death, but one who did not stalk him, but God brought it about into his hand, I will make a place for you to which he shall flee. But if a man plots deliberately against his friend to slay him with cunning, even from my altar you shall take him to die. And one who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. And whoever kidnaps a man and sells him, and he is found in his possession, shall surely be put to death. And one who cures his father or his mother, one who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. And if men quarrel, and one strikes the other with a stone or with a fist, and he does not die, but is confined to his bed, if he gets up and walks about outside on his support, the assailant shall be cleared. He shall give only payment for his enforced idleness, and he shall provide for his cure.
Very good. There's a lot of stuff in here. Would anybody have thoughts about any of it? Where you'd like to start at the tippy top or anything? Of course, we have verse 2 talks about the right of redemption, that Hebrew servants or slaves go out in the 7th year. And of course, speaking of slavery in regards to what the scripture is saying, and that's not Western slavery like we're most knowledgeable of nowadays. It's more of an indentured servitude, where you're paying a debt, and in such way are we not enslaved to our own debtors nowadays. So, of course, one can choose to remain a worker in servitude to their master. Of course, no one would choose that if they were being mistreated. So we know that there must be, again, some difference between what we understand in the modern era as slavery versus what the scriptures are talking about.
Yeah, I've brought up that Boaz was a good example of the, it wouldn't be too bad to be his servant, given what we know about him in the story.
Right.
Because this is often brought up, when people want to tear down the Torah or the Old Testament, when it talks about slavery.
Right. Yeah, it is definitely not. And we will see in subsequent parshas to subsequent aliyahs to this that mistreatment of slaves or servants or hirelings or whatever you want to call them, uh, is absolutely forbidden. So, of course, it even talks about it in here as well. The one thing that kind of struck me that I had not noticed before, it says if a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not go free as the slaves go free. I think, and I saw another translation that said sells her as a slave, but then it starts talking about her being a one who is engaged to be married to either this person or to one of their sons, etc. So that is really not a slavery thing, and it even is trying to draw the comparison at the end of the verse 7 where it's saying she's not going to be sold as a slave, or she won't be just set free as a slave, which would be very dangerous. If a young woman gets as it were engaged, or her bride price is paid for someone as she's being held in perpetuity for the marriage to this person's son, that she would be in serious jeopardy if she was then put back out, especially if maybe she had older parents and they had passed away. She wouldn't have a place to go back to. So this is here to protect her from just being turned out, turned loose, uh, if there was a plan in place otherwise. Um, Of course, we see this has been a hot topic in times past with friends that I've discussed it with, but we see here in Exodus 21, verse 10, that it appears, just as it does in all good ketubas, that uh, wives have rights, that at this time, the wives probably were not only taken care of and kept, they actually received a salary to be able to do what they do. Um, you know, uh, she receives her sustenance, her clothing, which is secondary from her sustenance. So she's not clothing herself. She's being fed. Again, she's probably receiving some sort of a salary, which we will get into in further alias from this. And the thing that has gotten me into a couple of situations with some friends is pointing out here, verse 10 says that conjugal rights belong to the wife, that she is the one who cannot be denied marital relations. Of course, that also goes into the time of children being part of your future, and that people living communally and that sort of thing, and that in the absence of a husband, that children would be there to help take care of their mother, etc. But so really, in reality, all conjugal rights belong to the wife. Now, if anybody wants to talk about that or has a different point of view on it, it is welcome here. Um, I would love to hear if there's something I've left out or an angle I've not considered.
Well, I remember one time I was discussing this with a pretty wise man, and he said, these are facts of what was to occur at that point, at that time, in this scenario.
Right.
That you would do well not to try and second guess God
Right.
as to why he says this and that. Just take for understanding that in that day, in that time, This is what was prescribed, and and God knows why.
Right.
To just accept it for this is the Torah.
Right.
And instead of trying to undergird every single thing with understanding of why it was like that and what could possibly happen, because we never will understand,
Sure.
But if you take it for this is what happened, it at least you can grasp what it was like in the day.
Right. I completely agree. We have a little bit further down. It talks about one who strikes a man that he dies shall surely be put to death. Of course, I love that the Torah, last week it told us, thou shalt not kill as part of the Ten Commandments. But here in the very next chapter, it tells us the difference between, murder and homicide or accidental death. Um, that there's motive involved and all of that sort of thing. Of course, we know that the key to long life, part of that is honoring our fathers and mothers. And here it says, part of the reason it's the key to long life is because whoever strikes his father or mother shall surely be put to death. So that's pretty heady. And we also see that kidnapping constitutes a capital punishment crime, as well as today as well. Let's see. I think that's most what I have for this particular aliyah. Did anybody have any thoughts about any other parts of it? No? Talkative crowd tonight?
Talkative.
All right. Well, would anybody? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying this was complex. It's
Right.
Yeah.
really not something you can talk too terribly much about. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
complex.
pretty.
It's like reading a legalese scenario.
Right.
But I should like to read the next one if you would like.
Okay, I would love to hear it.
All right. Exodus chapter 21. And should a man strike his manservant or his maidservant with a rod, and that one die under his hand, he shall surely be avenged. But if he survives for a day or 2 days, he shall not be avenged, because he is his property. And should men quarrel and hit a pregnant woman, and she miscarries, but there is no fatality, he shall surely be punished when the woman's husband makes demands of him, and he shall give restitution according to the judge's orders. But if there is a fatality, you shall give a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, foot, burn, wound, wound, bruise. And if a man strikes the eye of his manservant or the eye of his maidservant and destroys it, he shall set him free in return for his eye. If he knocks out a tooth of his manservant or the tooth of his maidservant, he shall set him free for return of his tooth. And if a bull gores a man or a woman, and that one dies, the bull shall surely be stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten. And the owner of the bull is clear. We'll have to come back to that one. But if it is habitually goring bull since yesterday and the day before yesterday, and its owner had been warned, but he did not guard it, and he puts to death a man or a woman, the bull shall be stoned, and also its owner shall be put to death. Insofar as ransom shall be levied upon him, he shall give the redemption of his soul according to all that is levied upon him. Or if it gores a young boy or a young girl, according to this ordinance, shall be done to him. If the bull gores a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give silver in the amount of 30 shekels to his master, and the bull shall be stoned. And if a person opens a pit, or if a person digs a pit and does not cover it, and a bull or donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit shall pay. He shall return money to its owner, and the dead body shall be his. And if a man's bull strikes his friend's bull and it dies, they shall sell the live bull and divide the money received for it, and they shall also divide the dead body. Or if it was known that it was a habitually goring bull since yesterday and the day before yesterday, and its owner does not watch it, he shall surely pay a bull for a bull, and the dead body shall be his. If a man steals a bull or a lamb and slaughters it or sells it, he shall pay 5 cattle for the bull or 4 sheep for the lamb. If while breaking in the thief is discovered and he is struck and dies, it is as if he has no blood. If the sun shone upon him, it is as if he has blood. He shall surely pay. If he has no money, he shall be sold for his theft. If the stolen article is found in his possession, whether a bull, a donkey, or a live one's, he shall pay twofold.
There's a lot there. I think we said that a lot tonight. All right, so there's some pretty wild stuff in there. Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, it's just set up to where if this bull situation, and he has to make restitution, and it's like, it's kind of like in today's world, if you've got a dog that is a biter, and he bites somebody, you're going to be, held responsible for that, the medical expenses or whatever. And but this is the way it's kind of worked out in the, back in the day that,
Right.
if you knew the bull was, a gorer, you're responsible for it, But would they eat this bull? I mean, because they're saying they're splitting it and everything. This wouldn't be
Well, see, I think
left to eat.
if it kills a person, no.
No, but at the
But if
end,
it kills another animal, it's a
Well-
little different, isn't it?
I was wondering the same thing. Now, the Torah elsewhere says that you can't eat an animal that is torn, or wasn't slaughtered properly. So, that being the case, I do know that the Torah says elsewhere that you can use the meat of that animal to feed other animals. So, that bull could be processed in whatever way that means for 3,500 years ago, and use it to. It says specifically elsewhere that torn animals' meat can be fed to dogs. So it'd be useful for something, but it shouldn't be used for food.
right. So I mean, that to me is kind of easy to understand,
Right.
As far as the bull part goes, that you know.
Let's see. I find it interesting that, of course, we're dealing with a time where we don't have surgery or dental stuff like we have nowadays. But that obviously, if you strike someone and destroy their eye, which I would imagine even being like, destruction or disconnection of the, ocular nerve, I think they call it, to where, it goes blind, that you would have to turn somebody loose. But even just knocking out a tooth, not to diminish knocking out a tooth, that's a big deal. I have friends who's had their teeth knocked out and had to get them handled or whatever. But that seems pretty. It's like a life for a life, a burn for a burn, a foot for a foot, and a life for a tooth. You have to let them go. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Because at that point, you're not fit to be that person's master if you're going to treat them like that.
True. You had to strike them with something. Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Let's see here. I find this interesting in regards to self-defense. We have some folks who are, that is our things that we think about and talk about on here. Outside of this, just the idea that if break-in happens at night, then and the person breaking in is killed, then everything's good. But at least according to Torah, if it happens during the day, that apparently there's some expectation that you can do something about it that is not lethal. I don't know. People talk about how they don't like the Torah, and it seems like it's just a bunch of rules. Well, one, that's not true. But two, I find the rules fascinating, even just at face value, that Hashem goes to this level of specific incidents to explain these things and to talk about them. Now,
Well,
so go ahead.
I was just going to say that people get so riled when these kind of occurrences happen. And it's
In modern day, you mean?
well, I would think it's a blood fever pitch scenario, and people go off crazy
Right.
about these kinds of things. And here it's saying, if it happens this way, this is what you do. If it happens that way, this is what you do. In other words, it's a way to steer clear of people taking something into their own hands and going off half-cocked. Your bull killed my, you know what I'm saying.
Right.
So it's necessary and it's good. But I think that's why he's gone to this level, is because people get at fever pitch on this kind of thing. You know what I mean? A neighbor's dog bites your grandchild, and you're loading your gun.
Right.
I mean, you know.
Well, I think I personally think it takes the guesswork out of how to
Right.
make the right decisions for
Right.
the situation.
Right.
You don't have to guess, well, if this happens, how do I feel about that? Well, it doesn't matter how you feel about something. It's what the law says. The law of God says do it this way. The law of man, the law of your country, the laws of your city say another thing. But if you want to do what the Lord says, he gives us all these examples, we
Right.
shouldn't be caught up on the fact that it's a bull and we don't own a bull and, that sort of thing. But we should get, the practicalities of how this is all laid out. It takes the guesswork out of it. That's why I always say, trying to adhere to the law of God is freedom.
Right.
Because I don't have to make any decisions except to do what it says.
Right.
Right.
It's all written out there, and
And it's justice according to his
right.
thinking, so it should be justice according to ours.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing. I've got a bit of a rabbit trail to go on. If y'all go with me, I don't know if I can string all these things together, but I just noticed something today. In verse 32 of chapter 21, it says, if a bull gores a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give silver in the amount of 30 shekels to his master, and the bull shall be stoned. So I'm not so much hung up on the 30 shekels to his master, because it drew my attention, the 30 shekels did. And the fact that it's talking about a bull, and it's talking about how the bull that did the evil is defeated, is destroyed. So now, surprise anybody who hasn't figured it out by now, we here at Yoke of Messiah, and most, if not all of us, believe that Yeshua, Jesus, is God incarnate, that he is the Messiah, whatever you want to call that. That's what we believe. So we're about to dive into that a little bit here. So Psalm 22 is talking, well, I'll read it to you, and I think there'll be enough contextual imagery there for y'all to figure out where I'm going. Psalm 22, see if these words sound familiar from somewhere other than Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me and from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but you do not hear, and in the night season, and am not silent. But you are holy, enthroned in the praise of Israel. Our fathers trusted you. They trusted and you delivered them. They cried to you and were delivered, and they trusted you and you were not ashamed and were not ashamed. But I am but I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised by people. All of those who see me ridicule me. They shoot out the lip. They shake their heads, saying, he trusted in the Lord. Let him rescue himself. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. But you are he who took me out of the womb. You made me trust while on my mother's breast. I was cast upon you from birth, from my mother's womb. You have been my God. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help me. Many bulls have surrounded me. Strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. They gape at me with their mouths like raging and roaring lion. And I am poured out like waters, and my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax and is melted within me. Now it goes on and on and on. But it talks about here the bulls of Bashan. Now I've heard it taught, and that all these words, many of these words, and this whole scenario is describing what happened when Messiah Yeshua Jesus was upon the executioner's stake. And this scripture here where it says the bulls of Bashan encircled me. There's references to the idea of the bulls of Bashan being evil spirits or demonic entities or people who are being controlled by demonic evil spirits and entities. And it says here, going back to the Parsha, if a bull gores a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give silver in the amount of 30 shekels, and the bull shall be stoned. It just occurred to me, having reading this, drawing my attention that 30 shekels were paid for the what the trading, being a traitor to the Messiah. That was the price of giving him over to to the Romans and all, and leading to his ultimate execution. Sorry if words escape me. It's late. But just the idea that there's bulls here, and we know that God, his Messiah, he says who will be the one that's most elevated and most revered would be the one who is the servant of all. So we see here the Messiah who just recently washed his disciples' feet, and that he said that he would be the servant of all, and he would draw all men into himself, and that these bulls of Bashan are surrounding him, and we have these bulls here in this scripture. But ultimately, in the end, that those bulls and their power to hurt and destroy were destroyed at that moment that Messiah was on the cross. That not to be foolish enough to say that the enemy and his evil forces don't have power in the world. They certainly do, and people are suffering and struggling under their influence even now. But just the idea that we have a mortally wounded enemy who seeks to go around like a lion, seeking who he can devour and all of these sort of things. But he knows his time is short and his time is limited. So he has to do all the evil and destruction he can do in the world, the enemy, Hasatan, that because Hashem is soon to make an end to his evil scheme. And it just, this obscure scripture about a bull goring a manservant and 30 shekels and the bull being stoned, for the first time I saw that today, and it drew my attention to those scriptures. So thank y'all for indulging me. I know it's a bit of a not a stretch, but a bit of a yarn to have told, but I appreciate y'all going with me on that.
You're welcome.
Well, did anybody have any thoughts about Aliyah 3 before moving on? 2 before moving on to 3.
That was good, Joey.
Well, you're too kind. Checks in the mail.
Well, the setup was tiresome.
Well, I wanted to give context.
Yeah.
Here at Yoke of Messiah, and our first t-shirt will be "Context is King," and I've been meaning to get that shirt pushed out so that people can buy it.
That's a good idea.
But yeah, so this will be the first shirt. So if you're watching this, don't steal that idea. Thank you. So would anybody like to read Aliyah 3?
I'll do it.
All right, let's have it.
Exodus 22, verse 4. If a man leads his animals into a field or a vineyard, or lets his animal loose and it eats in another's field, the best of his field or the best of his vineyard, he shall pay. If a fire goes forth and finds thorns, and a stack of grain or standing grain, or the field be consumed, the one who ignited the fire shall surely pay. If a man gives his neighbor money or articles for safekeeping, and it is stolen from the man's house, if the thief is found, he shall pay twofold. If the thief, that's kind of hard to say, is not found, the homeowner shall approach the judges to swear that he has not laid his hand upon his neighbor's property for any sinful word, for a bull or a donkey or a lamb or a garment, for any lost article concerning which he will say that this is it. The pleas of both parties shall come to the judges, and whoever the judges declare guilty shall pay twofold to his neighbor. If a man gives his neighbor a donkey, a bull, a lamb, or any animal for safekeeping, and it dies, breaks a limb, or is captured, and no one sees it, the oath of the Lord shall be between the two of them, provided that he did not lay his hand upon his neighbor's property, and its owner shall accept it, and he shall not pay. But if it is stolen from him, he shall pay its owner. If it is torn apart, he shall bring witness for it. For the torn one, he shall not pay. And if a person borrows an animal from his neighbor and it breaks a limb or dies, if its owner is not with him, he shall surely pay. If its owner is with him, he shall not pay. If it is a hired animal, it has come for its hire. If a man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall provide her with a marriage contract as a wife. If her father refuses to give her to him in marriage, he shall weigh out money according to the dowry of the virgins. You shall not allow a sorceress to live. Whoever lies carnally with an animal shall surely be put to death. He who slaughters a sacrifice to the gods shall be destroyed, except to the Lord alone. And you shall not mistreat a stranger, nor shall you oppress him, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not oppress any widow or orphan. If you oppress him, beware, for if he cries out to me, I will surely hear his cry. My wrath will be kindled, and I will slay you with the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your children orphans. When you lend money to my people, to the poor person who is with you, you shall not behave toward him as a lender. You shall not impose interest upon him. If you take your neighbor's garment as security, until sunset you shall return it to him. For it is his only covering, it is his garment for his skin. With what shall he lie? And it shall be that, if he cries out to me, I will hear, because I am gracious. So there.
Mhm.
Take that. So a lot of property damage rules. Anybody have any thoughts about any of it? You guys are going to have to hold it down. It's getting entirely too out of hand.
If someone asks me, can I borrow $20 from you?
Right.
No, you can't. I'll give it to you, but
Right.
I'm not going to loan it to you, because this is how I feel about it. If you have to ask me for $20, you're not going to have it later.
Right.
And that's going to put stress on them. And it could cause bad blood between the two. I've seen it. It's not worth it as far as I'm concerned.
That's at verse 24 right there.
Huh?
hmm
Verse 24.
Yeah,
You lend money, don't look at the person like you're a lender.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Uh,
And when my goddaughter asks me for gas money, I just feel loved.
I'm sorry, Noah, what were you saying?
So can I go ahead and get that $20 from Becky?
Dang it.
Sure. Yeah,
was gonna
buddy,
say.
both of you. Bring it on.
Anybody with that mentality, I will send out my address.
I do not have that mentality.
$20.
Just be like, post this on YouTube with my address under it, and you just let it pour in.
We're going to start a Patreon, not for the channel, but just for Ben.
It's to get me a camera so you can see my pretty face.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, don't give him any money.
Actually, I think we ought to take up a collection and get him. Well, I'd like to see his face.
Just take Noah's and put more hair around his neck and more hair on top of his head, and add about 100 pounds. And then
I was seeing he can do that.
There you go. No,
I
it
think,
just,
I think
you
Manson's
know, I
a
have
handsome man.
seen,
I think he's a handsome man. He's got pretty children.
Yeah, that he does. You can cut
yeah,
off.
buddy.
It's gibberish.
Sorry, Becky, what were you going to say?
Nothing. It's okay.
You sure?
I'll start a fun for Ben.
I'll yeah, I'd heard it said one time, and I might have heard it from somebody in this midrash, but somebody gave me good advice not too far ago that said, don't loan anything that you need back.
That's right.
If you loan it, just go ahead and consider it gone. If the person brings it back, super. If not, you've never, there's no expectation there. So
Right.
I thought that was a wise thing.
And this was not just a
And depending on what it is, you don't ever have to loan it again
True.
if it comes back crappy.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just saying that this is pretty important stuff to these people,
Absolutely.
But then to me, right here, when it's talking about all these animals and right there in the verse 15, a man seduces a virgin. What's that all about? I mean, that's kind of in an odd spot, isn't it?
Well, he seduces a virgin, but that word is seduce. It's not, he does not take her with force. Because if he had and her father found out, then he would be liable of being stoned.
Okay.
Um,
I didn't notice that.
and I think the real key here is that she's not engaged to be married to somebody else. So she's not spoken for. And elsewhere in the Torah, it says that it's alluded to in Genesis, and we get it actually in print. I want to say in Deuteronomy, but it says that no, it was just a couple parshas ago. It says that I don't want to use the King James, but it's something to the effect of whoredoms by the daughters of Israel will not be tolerated. Basically, you can't play the harlot if you're a daughter of Israel. It's bad business. It comes back up in the thing we were reading about not too long ago about the husband who finds that he doesn't love his wife, and so he accuses her of having not been a virgin when they were married, and so the parents have to produce the proof, the evidence thereof, and it says, and if there's no evidence, then she has to be executed because playing the harlot is not
Right.
acceptable amongst the daughters of Israel. So this guy, they have a moment of passion, consensual, and then he realizes, I gotta, he really likes her, and then also he realizes, like, if we don't do something about this, we're both going to be in trouble. If this news gets out.
Yeah.
So let me ask if this is the right scenario. Noah and I live next door to each other.
I like where this is going.
I ask Noah, let me borrow your portable like grill, your gas grill or whatever. Let me borrow that for a party. And he says, sure. And I take it and have my party, but something goes awry and it breaks. If Noah is with me the entire time,
If he attends the party.
if he attends the party, he's with me, he sees me doing the right things with that grill, I'm not mishandling it,
Right.
then I don't owe him a penny.
Right.
But if he's not invited to the party, he's just my good neighbor, and I borrow that and it breaks, I go, oh God, I really need to pay him for that because he was not there with me when it broke. And in his mind, he might surmise, I wonder if he turned that thing up too high, like I told him not to do. I wonder, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Is that the thought behind it? If he's with me, he sees it, all is well. If he's not with me, He doesn't see it. Something could have happened. I should pay him for that grill.
Well, I mean, if he's with you, at least got a steak or something out of it. So
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. All this kind of comes back down to all these rules when you put them in those like modern context. To me, just says, well, these are specific scenarios, but what they are really a cure for or a protection against is bitter hearts.
Mm.
well, I mean, it's just a good
Yes.
way to be anyway. I mean, if you said a while ago, don't loan money expecting to get it back. Don't loan it if you know.
If you can't live without it, don't give it away.
It's the same way. Like if I borrow something from somebody, I'm not going to borrow it unless I know I can replace it.
That's right.
Right.
I just assume, hey, there's a good chance that this grill's going to break or something's going to happen. I'm going to be, forking over the money for that. I'm hoping that it doesn't.
Right.
So, I'm taking a chance that it doesn't, and then I just didn't have to buy myself a grill. But if it
Right.
breaks, now I got to buy a grill, and I still don't have a grill.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's why it says neither a borrower or a lender be. I mean, the whole point is you can save some of this risky stuff by not doing it.
Yeah, you can always say no.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
No's always can be a one-word sentence.
Yep.
No.
Mhm.
And that's I won't belabor the issue, but I have a friend years ago who really struggled with asserting themselves, not being hateful, but asserting themselves in the negative. And they struggled and sought counseling about it. And then they finally read a book and shared it with me. That's, I think it was called uh, When I Say No, I Feel Bad, or something like that. It was kind of an oddly worded book. Or I Feel Bad When I Say No, or something like that. But I leafed through it and it was good. And it was really an empowerment for people to be able to say no. If you, just a little life advice here. We all are finite people and we only have so much time and so many talents and things that we're good at. And then you also have a life that you're supposed to live and spend time with your family and friends and enjoying yourself and observing the Sabbath. If you just do what you're excellent at in life,
Yeah.
most of your life is going to be no. When you start saying yes to things that you don't have business saying yes to, you're going to end up doing things poorly. It's going to take up too much of your time. It's going to be a burden. You're going to miss time with your family and friends. It might even infringe upon the Holy Sabbath, God forbid. So it's better to find what you're excellent at and to use that skill as much as possible. That way, you don't even have time to, try and do something else. I know that sounds weird. People should try things and not, whatever, but whatever it is your skill set to do, apply that thing to good use. But, you can either do a couple of things excellently or you can do a whole bunch of things crappy, pardon French. And I've been both a perpetrator upon other people and have fallen into that trap myself of trying to do too much. And even the thing that I was supposed to be good at suffered. So embrace no. No's
Very
good.
lesson, Zoe.
Hmm?
I said that's a very good lesson.
Well, it's super
And
important.
Yeah. And he's pretty clear about how we're supposed to treat the widows and the orphans.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. It's like if you abuse the widows and orphans, I will make your spouse a widow.
My
or
wrath
widower.
will be kindled,
Mhm. Yep.
and I
Well,
will slay you with the sword.
I don't want anybody to have to call out to the Lord over how I've treated them,
Mhm.
Correct.
And especially a widow or an orphan.
or especially a widow or an orphan.
The widows and orphans are mentioned quite often in the scripture.
Yeah, they are.
Well, and I was even thinking about this the other day. I think it's the book of Isaiah that says it's somewhere in one of the prophets. It says, you know, you do all these things and keep these new moon festivals and all these things, but it avails nothing, and that true religion is taking care of the widows and the orphans. In fact, since I kind of butchered that, I'll
True and undefiled religion is taking care of the widows and the orphans, I think it says.
Right.
let's see. Shouldn't take but a second. Well, it says it in one of the prophets, but it also says in James 1, 2, and 7 in the Brit Hadashah. Well, it took me to a website for a orphanage. Let's see. Well, and okay. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after widows and orphans in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world.
And where was that?
That was in James 1, 27. I know it says it somewhere else. I want to say I think that's a quote from Isaiah, but yeah. Let's see. When God has told us multiple times He is a God of justice and tells us to pursue justice. So that is certainly let's not lose the lead there. I'll read 4, unless Ben, you would like to read 4.
I'll go ahead, man. You do such a better job.
I'm sorry, I did not catch that. Was that Migo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Exodus chapter 22, verse
I
27.
couldn't see your face.
You shall not. All right. 22:27. You shall not curse a judge, neither shall you curse a prince among your people. Your fullness offering and your heave offering you shall not delay. The firstborn of your sons you shall give to me. So shall you do with your cattle and with your sheep. 7 days it shall be with its mother, and on the 8th day you shall give it to me. And you shall be a holy people to me. And flesh torn in the field you shall not eat. There you go. Throw it to the dogs. 23:1. You shall not accept a false report. Do not place your hand with a wicked person to be a false witness. You shall not follow the majority for evil. You shall not respond concerning a lawsuit to follow many to pervert justice. Neither shall you glorify a poor man in his lawsuit. If you come upon your enemy's bull or his stray donkey, you shall surely return it to him. And if you see your enemy's donkey lying under its burden, would you refrain from helping him? You shall surely help along with him. Man, there's some heavy, like, flip the script on what we think is common sense life principles in these few verses here. Man, just in the last year, I've heard people curse a judge. I've heard people say awful things about rulers and their families and their children. Whether you like them or not, whether they're the leader of your particular area or not, man, we are not supposed to be out here talking trash about those that God has put in authority.
What is a heave offering?
I'll let our
Describe.
Rabbi Glenn. That's
Remember
what he does.
how I take the loaves of bread
Yes.
and I heave them.
Okay.
It's a wave
Gotcha.
offering.
Okay.
So I figured he'd probably answer that best.
It's a special type of offering. We shall not,
Okay.
Your fullness, just don't delay it.
Right.
So what is this verse 29? So shall you do with your cattle and with your sheep. 7 days it shall be with its mother. On the 8th day you may give it to me. Is that make an offering out of it?
Right.
That's what
To
I think it to be.
Okay.
first you offer the firstborn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I forget that sometimes too, and I've heard people try and say that's to, take pressure off the mothers who are nursing or whatever. But
Well, usually lots of times it'll say, take a sheep or goat or whatever in the first year.
right,
Still a baby, up to a year old. But
right.
I'm kind of surprised to see this.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the wording on 28. It says, "The firstborn of your sons you shall give to me."
Right.
I guess I'm lost on what that means, or it's not
Dedicate.
clicking.
You shall dedicate those. Dedicate that
So it's
child.
just a dedication.
Right.
That,
You
that
bring a
is my
sacrifice.
I mean, I know it's not. I know it's not sacrifice, but
No, I'm saying like you bring a sacrifice. I think there's a
okay.
monetary thing. I think you
Yeah.
have to give
Shekel.
5 shekels of the temple shekel, and then I think you have to do a offering, not only for the mother's cleanliness, but also for a restoration, to the household, but also for the child as well. So,
So it's just the firstborn of your sons, but not
right.
for the daughters. Those are the subsequent sons. Yeah, I guess I was missing the firstborn part when I first looked at it, and I was just thinking the way you give your sons to him might be just the circumcision thing, but no,
That's
this is
definitely part of
something
it, in my opinion.
This is something separate for the firstborn.
Well, I'll be
Each
honest with
day.
you. To me, the complete Jewish Bible makes it a little bit more clear. It's the writing in this particular rendition or whatever you call it. It seems a little unusual to me. But anyway, sometimes I'll read it here because it's divided up into the alias, and it's very easier to do that. But if I really want to know what it's really meaning, sometimes I'll go to the complete Jewish Bible, or like one of these guys will go to the New King James, something like that. It just, some of the writing is a little unusual to me.
Wording.
Right.
The wording, the way it's worded, it's unusual.
Phrases.
What verse was that?
No.
Hey, oh, I thought you froze. All right. So, what were we saying about tail bearing and majority following?
Well, I just said, you shall not follow the majority for evil.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't go with the group for an evil purpose. Don't agree with them because of the majority and this and that.
Right. There's strength in numbers. There's not necessarily always truth in numbers.
That is true.
False claim against the neighbor.
Hmm. I find it very interesting because this speaks to my heart, not to pervert justice, but like it says, neither shall you glorify a poor man in his lawsuit. That God takes the time to be like, well, one, he forbids bribes elsewhere. So he's saying that, hey, don't let the rich guy off the hook just cause no bribes. But then he also says, hey, look, if the poor guy did something, you still gotta call, balls and strikes. You can't,
Well,
just
yeah,
because.
he's also saying, not to rule in his favor just because he's poor. Like,
That's
not,
what I mean. Yeah.
That's right.
like,
That
well,
he-
I mean, but like for not just against him, like he did something, but like if he's like, calls Alexander Shannara, and you don't just award him the lawsuit just because, well, I mean, he's poor, he needs money anyway.
Right.
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 Yoke Messiah is not paid by Alexander Shannara.
No, this is not a paid. Yeah. And for anybody that doesn't know who that is outside of the Southeast, he is our leading lawyer. We'll say the guy on TV. That,
He's not. He's
Damien,
celebrated on television.
Call me, Alabama.
He's a well-advertised attorney.
he's not the Alabama Hammer. So we have to give equal time now. He's not the Alabama Hammer. He's not.
But he doesn't pay for that comma after Alabama.
No,
The
he
signs.
He doesn't pay for the comma.
Yeah, it should be call me Alabama, but instead it says call me Alabama. So every time you
Oh,
see it,
Oh
yeah,
say,
yeah,
yes.
hey Alabama.
Call me Alabama.
Yes.
call me Alabama.
Oh,
Or,
shall we move on? Shall we
Okay.
press on?
Please,
We've
we're
digressed.
losing it.
Well, I love this particular one here. Jim will call it good. If you see your enemy's donkey, it's not the donkey, it's not your buddy's donkey, it's not your donkey, it's for the welfare of the animal itself. If you see your enemy's donkey lying under a burden, you have to help them. I love that.
Hmm.
All right. Ben, would you like to do Alia 5 or was there anybody else? Huh?
I want Ben to do it.
That's 2 votes, Ben. That's
All right.
Well, I'll vote Ben. Yeah.
all right. So
Yeah, me too.
the majority has chosen you.
But did you send your delegates to the Republic and they choose me?
I didn't, but I am going with the evil of the majority on this one and forcing you to read.
Okay. All right. You shall not pervert the judgment of your poor man in his lawsuit. Distance yourself from a false matter, and do not kill a truly innocent person or one who has been declared innocent, for I will not vindicate a guilty person. You shall not accept a bribe, for a bribe will blind the clear-sighted and corrupt words that are right. And you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, since you were strangers in the land of Egypt. 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its produce. But in the 7th year you shall release it and abandon it. The poor of your people shall eat it, and what they leave over, the beasts of the field shall eat. So shall you do to your vineyard and to your olive trees. 6 days you may work, but on the 7th day you shall rest in order that your ox and donkey shall rest, and your maidservant's son and the stranger shall be refreshed. Concerning concerning all I have said to you, you shall concerning all that I have said to you, you shall beware, and the name of the gods of others you shall not mention. It shall not be heard through your mouth. 3 times you shall slaughter sacrifices to me during the year. You shall observe the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, as I have commanded you, at the appointed time of the month of springtime. For then you left Egypt, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. And the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you shall sow in the field, and the festival of the ingathering at the departure of the year, when you gather in the products of your labors from the field. 3 times during the year all your males shall appear before the Master Yahweh. You shall not sacrifice the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, and the fat of my festive sacrifice shall not stay overnight until morning. The choicest of the first fruits of your soil you shall not bring to the house of Yahweh your God. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk.
Right. Thank you, Ben.
No problem.
Anybody have any thoughts, opinions, concerns?
The thing I still struggle with, because I think it's probably would be a good thing for us to do, is in verse 10 with the 6 years you may sow your land and gather in its produce, but in the 7th year you shall release it and abandon it. I still say, I know that all the stuff that he decrees is for a reason. It's not, I don't think any of it's arbitrary or just for the sake of making rules.
Right.
I just, without, and luckily we know when the Sabbath day is, but knowing when that Sabbath year is, I just wonder how much that would help our land, our people, our everything.
Right.
I think I heard it said a bunch last year. I wonder if this was supposed to be a Sabbath year anyway, because like nobody would really do anything. It's about to flip over into more than just a year, but
Yeah.
very shortly. I just I wish we knew that. And I still say it's probably a good idea, to to adhere to that in some shape or form, even though you don't necessarily know when that is. Not that many of us are farmers or whatever, but I'm sure we could look that over and apply it to other things in
Yeah.
our lives as well.
Right.
Right.
Well, it is something that one could do if it was your land.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because this whole nation was a nation unto themselves, unto the Lord, and they could do these things.
Mm.
But with your land and your belongings and your stuff, you can do it.
Mhm.
You can do it. And God will bless you in the concept of that, and you'll see the fruit of that.
Well, not that year you won't, because you're not one.
Well, that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
but I think you'll see other fruit.
Yeah.
You may
Well,
not see your crop.
Yeah.
It still provides. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
they probably were supposed to do just the same as they did on preparation day and gather
Yeah.
things in and store things up to some degree. But also, I mean, I think, and I get confused on it because there's so many different pieces of it. But I know somewhere it talks about, eat what grows. You can eat what grows naturally. You just can't sow the land.
Right.
And you can't go in and like whatever that is. Reap.
Right. Give it a rest. Give
Yeah.
it a rest.
Harvest all. Yeah, right.
Right.
And it says down there, I think in the end of verse 11, or middle, in the 7th year you shall release it and abandon it. The poor of your people shall eat it, and what they leave over, the beasts of the field shall eat. So shall you do to your vineyard and to your olive trees.
Right.
That's good.
So it's the same thing, and it's kind of it's kind of an extension of when he tells them don't harvest all the way to the edge of your field, and don't go back and pick up the stuff that you drop. Leave that stuff for the poor, which is what we know what Ruth was doing when when she was going out after her husband and her sister, the
Naomi.
brother, and her brother-in-law died, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm almost wondering if how like there's some people who are not religious who do religious things such as give to charities, et cetera, and we see that they've been super blessed for their charitable work. I almost wonder, not to say that we should, because this logic, if you draw it backwards, will get us into doing the Sabbath on days that is not the Sabbath. We know when the Sabbath is.
Right.
But the idea that I'm almost wondering if you just picked a year and just, since we don't know when the year was, and just started, I would not be surprised if God didn't, bless that effort, or technically lack of effort in this part.
Doesn't Israel do that every 7 years?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
There's probably, I think there's a
Well,
couple
what is it
of,
when you buy their, when they put out there that you can buy the property for?
say that again, I'm sorry.
You mean Jubilee?
Right.
Yes, that's what it is. Okay. Never mind.
The
I've heard
Jubilee is the 7th year of these, though. So that is,
I've heard it said that the way
Not the
they
same?
run it is that they let other people farm their land for that 7th year. Like they'll rent it out, and the land is not getting a rest, but they're saying that they're not working it and
right.
Oh,
that. But
I
my
would think.
It's kind of like taking the leaven out of your house and giving it to your neighbor who is non-Jewish.
Yeah.
Would you hold that for the week for me and then give it back?
Hold the sin. No.
I'll ask my brother-in-law and sister do that. They let their land rest, and they've been doing it for years and years, every 7 years. I'll ask them how they've come to the, how they figure how they've come to it.
Right.
on why they do it the years they do.
And ask and see if there's any appreciable difference, either in the yield or in something more metaphysical or whatever like that, Because, I mean, if you think about it, the Sabbath is important to rest. And even if you do nothing on the Sabbath, it's better to do nothing on the Sabbath and rest. But really, it always speaks to me that, like, well, even like Noah said about this year, where we couldn't do a whole lot of above
Right.
and beyond.
Right.
Well, this year has been of great blessing to me. Yes, there's horrible things going on around us, but like in terms of becoming a better dad and really spending more time with my kids and my wife and spending time in prayer and supplication and all this sort of thing, even spending this time with you guys, getting this thing launched and really going. Um, it's not just, if you think about it, how much more spiritually strong and closer to God would we all be, and Israel at this time, be if we took a whole year, didn't do any of our normal labor. You might spend 70% of it goofing off or whatever, or just playing sports ball with your kids or whatever, but that's 30% of your time you might could spend in prayer and supplication, going to shul, like a national revival, everybody have a chance to get on their face before God on a regular basis, that sort of thing. you know, what could have been and what could still be if we would observe some of these things, and just use the no, cut some things out of our lives to simplify and to free up time to do some more of the, again, spiritual, metaphysical,
Yeah.
pursuits.
Well, it's just like most messianic believers that I've talked to or been around. When you start keeping the feasts and just doing those little things, I mean, even though we still get it wrong, even after years of trying, we still get it, maybe even completely wrong in some instances. Um, I think you definitely. I mean, I believe he blesses it first of all,
Absolutely.
but I think just from the trying, you're blessed in that because you start to understand a little more about him, and I think that's what it's that's what all of it's about. That's what the entire Bible is about. One of the things that we've talked about in our household for months now is because we still go to a Sunday church, and it's like every lesson, every sermon, every whatever that comes out, it's all about trying to figure out who are we and what are we supposed to do, and what's our part in all this. And very little time in most cases is spent trying to figure out who God is and what he's all about. And I think that's why he gave us the book, and I think we just miss a big opportunity there. I think all that other stuff is very much needed. We should do that as well, but we definitely need to spend a lot of time searching him and figuring out who he is. We can't figure out who we are in him until we know who he is. So, I think all those little things that we do in that vein are blessed. And it's never a waste to try to do those things.
Absolutely. Faith, there's people use the word trust and faith interchangeably. I'm not going to go into some exegesis here on the Hebrew or the Greek, but I will say that trust means I trust you're going to do this thing. Faith always alludes to me that there's movement on the parts of two different character or actors or participants. Faith is God's moving, and that he's moving towards you and you're moving towards him to try and come together. Even if you're not doing everything just right. If God were waiting for perfect people, no, yeah, we'd all be gone. So if you're striving in your heart to reach out to God, even if you totally botch it, God sees the motives of our heart and gives us credit for motive as much as he gives us credit for actually halakha and actually walking things out. If it's our heart's in the right place to do the thing, I know for sure. And there's scriptures to back it up, and we'll get into that some other time. But I was getting late. But God's as concerned with our motive, if not more so, than He is with the actual thing that we're doing.
Can I add to that just for a second?
Absolutely.
When you look back over this past year, right at the beginning of it, I was coming unglued. Why? And I look at where we've come to this. Look at how much we're spending time with each other. I mean, like if I had been going to shul, and I love that, and I love going, of course. But I would give a one-liner or a couple of sentences to Noah. We'd laugh our sides split. Then I'd say a couple of things to Ben and keep going on the way. But we would not have had this kind of connection. I have connected with so many people through this medium to really talk to them. Really, I feel like I know Ben in a way I've never knew him before. So, I mean, you can look at this situation in many, many ways. Look what God has opened up for us for a purpose. I don't know the total purpose of why He has allowed all of this to happen, but there have been some things that have come out of it that have been life affirming and life changing. And frankly, if we were able to all go back to be together tomorrow, I will feel that I have not missed out anything with Noah and Ben, because I've spent more quality time with them in this scenario than I ever did when I was face to face with them, still saying that I want to go back. But do you see where I'm going? You never know. We've given the shul a rest for a year, and now we're doing it this way.
Right. For certain.
Mhm.
Well, I tell you what, we have reached an hour and a half time, and there's a couple more alia left, but I feel like what we've discussed up to now and in just this moment is a beautiful thing. I'd hate to lose it in the additional words. Now, before I turn us loose, if there's anything that's an alia 6 or 7 that anybody would like to bring up specifically, we can certainly touch on that before we call it a day. I don't want to leave that out, but otherwise, as I've made the commitment on these parshas that we can't finish, we're going to come back next year and we're going to start where we left off and we're going to finish them and make companion
good.
pieces. So, was there anything from 6 or 7 anybody like to bring up specifically?
No, I've just got a question about, like, in this Kabod version, Alia 7 skips over to Numbers chapter 28. Like it basically concludes. I know in the CJB, the Parsha concludes where this Alia 6 concludes at Exodus 24:18.
Mm-hmm.
But then this one has a 7th that is Numbers. Do you know why that is? I mean, I'm sure it relates, but
For sure. No, that's actually a great question. And I'll be honest, I never noticed.
There is a reason. I just can't give you I just can't give it to you right now, because like in Temple, they would actually go to Numbers and read this portion. I
is it
can't
the
tell
only,
you exactly why,
is this the only Parsha that does that? I've
Huh?
never noticed. Is this the only Parsha that does that you know of?
I haven't noticed another partial that does that, but there's a reason for it.
Okay.
I just don't know what it is. I just go with it,
I'll let the rabbi put that in his notes and get back to us on it.
Yes, he'll do
No,
it.
I think I may have found something here. Let's see. The 7th reading. Let's see. Alia 6. In the short 6th reading, God promised to send an angel with the Israelites to bring them to the place God had prepared. And God directed the Israelites to obey the angel, for if they did, then God would be an enemy to their enemies. The Israelites were not to serve other gods. The seventh reading, in the seventh reading, God promised reward for obedience and invited Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders to bow to God from afar. Moses repeated the commandments to the people and answered, "All the things that the Lord has commanded we will do." Moses then wrote the commandments down. He set up an altar, and some young Israelite men offered sacrifices. Moses took a book referred to as the Book of the Covenant and read the covenant aloud to the people, who once again affirmed that they would follow it. Let's see.
And say all that stuff is in the sixth Aliyah on the Kabod part.
That's,
That's all chapter 24 of Exodus.
Right.
And then it concludes at 18, which is after he's written all the stuff down. And then the seventh one starts in Numbers chapter 28, verse 9. It says, "And on the Sabbath day, 2 unblemished lambs in the first year, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a meal offering mixed with oil and its libation. This is a burnt offering of each Sabbath on its Sabbath, in addition to the continual burnt offerings." Anyway, and it goes on down. It's short. It goes on down to 15. So I didn't know if that was I just didn't know if that was a maybe a kind of a typo or whatever for them. But when I went back and looked, they've got all of it, and it says seventh portion, Numbers 28, 9 through 15.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know and have never noticed, so that's bad on me. I will absolutely make a note to look at that and see if we can't come up with an answer for it. But thank you for bringing it to my attention, though.
Yeah, I didn't want to derail that. I was just curious about it.
No, this is an excellent question. If anybody watching this video, please, if you know the answer, we would love to hear it from you. In the meantime, I will do the homework between now and next week. We'd love to hear it from you in the comments. So, or if you want to email me directly, you can at yokamessiah@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, we'll absolutely look into that and get an answer and tag it on here. But we do appreciate everybody who has come and spent this time with us this week. It's been our privilege to be able to share this information with you, and we would love to hear anything you might have to say. Again, you can comment in the comments. If you'd like to pick up the conversation with us at our Facebook page, you can at facebook.com/groups/Yoke of Messiah. And again, if you need to reach me directly, you can at yokeofmessiah@gmail.com. So for this week and for all of our friends here, thank you so much again for visiting with us. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem.